All right, so starting well. All right, welcome to the first episode of This is BS. I am here with Graham Hawkins, the CEO and founder of Salestribe. Graham, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what you do and what Salestribe's all about?
Well, thank you, Ben. Yes, delighted to be here. Salestribe is a sales enablement organisation that helps businesses get better at selling, and we help right across the full sales enablement genre, if you like, and also with talent as well. We help find the right talent and cultivate the right talent.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool. And so the whole point of this series is talking about things in the industry that annoy you or frustrate you, and what you can kind of do to improve that. But before we even get into that, I've got 10 quick fire questions. I've put these all together based on your experience and what you've done. So these are all related to you in some way or form, I hope. In the show The Simpsons, what colour is Ralph's belt buckle?
Oh my God. I've seen a few of those Simpson episodes, but no, I wouldn't know, mate. Red.
Oh, you nailed it, red. You're 1 for 1. Second question, how long is a giraffe's tongue?
3 foot?
It's 21 inches, mate. Same size as my TV growing up, believe it or not. Just fine. All right, so if you made $1 every second for the rest of your life, how long would it take for you to have the same amount of money as Bill Gates has now? How many years would it take?
A million?
Oh, close. It's actually 2,921 years.
Right.
Which is actually around $92.1 billion, around that.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Very good.
What is the technical name for the hashtag symbol?
The hashtag symbol? No, I don't know.
Close. Actually, you're not close at all. That's terrible. No, actually, it is the octothorpe.
Oh, no, didn't know that.
No, I didn't know this until I started doing this either. What is the name of a baby puffin?
No idea.
Okay, it's a puffling. Close. I like that. Yep. In what year were dogs banned from Antarctica? And a bonus point if you can tell me why.
1901, Federation.
Okay, it's 1994. It's because dogs were spreading diseases to seals. That's what that was.
Interesting but useless facts.
Oh, look, it's great. I'll be honest. Kenny Chesney, a famous country music star, once wrote and performed a song about what farm tool?
Plow?
Oh, no. It's a tractor, and the name of the song is She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy. It's really important, yeah. According to the Grapes and Wine newsletter from Cornell University, how many grapes go into a bottle of wine?
120.
Oh, it's 700. You're miles off, okay, last question. This one's really important.
Right.
Who do all the swans in England technically belong to?
The swans. They technically belonged to the crown.
Oh, yes, the Queen.
The Queen?
The Queen, yes. Actually, it's Meghan Markle's grandmother-in-law. That's how we kind of say it now.
Right.
So those are the 10 questions that are nothing to do with you, but we thought we'd start with that.
Yeah, fantastic.
So let's now move on to the actual part of this, which is the 3 things in the industry that frustrate you. So why don't we start off with what is your first BS that you would like to remedy?
Well, as you know, I run a company called Salestribe, as I mentioned earlier, or as you mentioned earlier, and one of the things that is always on my goat is the way that salespeople are measured, managed, and rewarded. I've been a salesperson for 30 years, and so I've lived and breathed this stuff for a long time. And when you look at the way the world of business has changed, we've moved from vendor push to customer pull business models. And so what I grew up learning about sales was that sales was a numbers game, and that you should always be closing, and it was all about brute force sales, push, push, push. Of course, now that's all changing, and I'm well known for talking about all of this transformation that's happening. But still to this day, in 2020, one of the things that grinds me is the way that most leaders, sales leaders and business leaders, still expect that salesperson to be out there, pushing through the calls, interrupting buyers, 3 to 5 times quota in the pipeline, all of that push stuff that I grew up with. And that's no longer congruent with modern buyers.
Okay.
So I get frustrated about the way salespeople are measured, managed, and rewarded, because A, it drives the wrong behaviour, and B, it makes the job of the salesperson really a pretty tough and sometimes miserable job. If I'm just being measured on volume metrics all day long, how many calls have you made today, Ben? How many meetings have you got, Ben? Have you got 3 to 5 times quota in your pipeline, Ben? If that's all I'm being measured on as a salesperson, then not only is it not congruent or not in step with modern buyer expectations, it makes my job just really lame. and it's driving the wrong behaviour.
So that's a good question to ask then, is why are people afraid to move away from this particular style of sales? What's driving people to stay where they are?
Because what made us successful previously is what we've always done, and we've always done sales this way, and so why should we change?
Okay.
What they've forgotten, a lot of these people, is that the buyer has changed, or the power imbalance that used to be on the side of the vendors is now with the buyers.
Okay.
Buyers are educated, information parity, access to all sorts of learning and insights that they never had before. So we're now dealing with a totally different game. You know, the rules of the game have changed, the venues changed, everything's changed.
Yeah.
And we have to change the way we sell. We can no longer keep chasing buyers. We have to start to learn how to attract buyers.
Okay.
And give the buyer the experience that they want. Right?
Well, you're a big advocate of the way HubSpot do their business and how they kind of get everybody on. What exactly did you learn from the HubSpot experience that kind of transitioned to how you're going to give your solution? What exactly is it that they did?
Look, I'm a huge fan of the HubSpot model because two things. Brian Halligan, when he set that company up in 2007, I think it was, built the culture around this concept of create value before you try to extract value. In other words, as a salesperson, create value for your buyer before you ever ask anything of them.
Okay.
That's the first thing. The second thing is their entire go-to-market model is all about the experience for the buyer. You know, where are you in the buying journey? What's the buying stage appropriate message at each stage? How do I create the best possible experience? How do I give you a wow at each and every interaction? That's what HubSpot does.
Okay, cool.
So the second part of that, to summarise, is the experience that they give throughout the sales process.
Right.
And they remove the hard sell. There's no push. There's no, I've written a post about this, there's no desperation in the way they sell. They educate and they step back.
Yep.
So I love that model.
So that would then also kind of allude to the solution that you might be giving as sort of around that education piece. So let's make it really easy. The first solution for this, what exactly is it that people can do to start off with to get away from this old model into this kind of new style that you're bringing in?
Well, it's a fairly glib answer in a way, and I know it's easy to say, a lot harder to do, but you've got to transform the way you go to market. I always say, you know, forget listening to sales coaches, sales thought leaders. Don't listen to me. First thing you do, go out and ask your buyers. Ask your buyers, how do they want to engage? I like this question. I'll go to a buyer and I'll say, you know, so Ben, before we get, thanks for the time, you know, today, before we get started, could you give us an example of an exemplary experience that you've had with a vendor salesperson or a vendor in general? Because what I'd like to do is to try and match that. So I want to know from you what good looks like.
Okay.
All right, that's
Excellent.
the first thing.
Yep.
The second thing is understand the journey that they take, the buyer that is, when they're trying to solve problems. Map the buyer journey.
Okay.
Understand exactly the steps that they go through, that they want to go through, and then give them the experience that they want.
Yeah.
That means changing or adopting a new sales playbook that matches the buyer journey.
Okay.
Simple stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds easy to say, but you've got to stop the old brute force sales and start doing a much more modern approach to buying.
Right.
Sales, I should say, not buying.
Excellent. Okay. So like this is all very interesting, especially for someone like myself who's not necessarily in sales, but hearing sort of the style in which you get. But you get sold in any kind of way, from being sold a product to being sold people in recruitment to being sold a service, whatever it may be. So it's interesting to hear focusing more on the education piece and more on the delivery of starting at the back, going, well, let's hear about what's been good for you so far or what you've done, and kind of mold it around that. So I think that's a very interesting way to do it.
Well, yeah, and to your point, although I've been in sales for 30 years, I'm now the owner of a small business, and I'm now getting vendors approaching me all the time. So I'm seeing what it's like as a buyer to deal with these old school salespeople. And some of it, I've got to tell you, is absolutely bloody deplorable. Some of it's terrible. Some of it's like ringing me all the time. You know, can we bring this deal forward? Can we move? You know, what can we do? What do I need to do to get you to sign this deal now? Like, salespeople have to stop that nonsense. And again, to the first point about, how they're measured, managed, and rewarded. What gets measured gets managed. And salespeople are being driven to behave this way because some senior leader has said, here's your quota, don't mess it. And we need, numbers are down this month, numbers are down this quarter, quick, get out and bring that deal forward. So it's not the fault of the salesperson, let me make that clear. Salespeople are typically just doing what they're told in a lot of cases.
So do you think, just a final question on this first BS is, do you think you need to be on the opposite end of that transaction in order to understand the problem that's there? So you talk about buyers calling you all the time. Do you think they need to experience that in order to understand that their potential process isn't actually working?
Yeah, I do. I think salespeople need to put themselves in the shoes of the buyer. They need to understand the buyer ideal customer profile and the buyer persona. So to truly understand the buyer's business and the problems that they're trying to solve, you need to do some serious research. There's, the scattergun approach, the looking at every single customer type as potential fit, whether they're fit or not. You've got to be really uncompromising about who you go after and understand the journey that they go on. Give them the experience they want. Back to Brian Halligan, HubSpot. He said at Inbound last year at 2019 in Boston, he said, when you look at the really savvy and successful vendors today, and he rattled off about 6 of them, he said, how they sell is why they win. And it's all about experience, market fit. So just give the buyer the experience they want.
Exactly. It seems like a very simple system, but unfortunately sometimes it's a lot easier said than done. So cool. That definitely sounds like BS to me. That sounds just like an awful experience. Having been in a business like I'm in, where we get people who call and go, "We'd love to have some video service. Oh, by the way, any chance you can do it pro bono or for free, or do it for this?" And you just go, "If you're going to try and sell me on helping you out, help me out as well." It's a combination thing. So that to me definitely is BS. So that's number one. So what would you say? Let's put that aside. That's definitely BS. What's your number 2 BS side of things in your industry?
Well, there's a lot of things that are changing, and changing for all the right reasons. The pendulum has swung, as I said before, to educated buyers, and so sales organisations, marketing, customer success, everything's coming together now around creating the right experiences for buyers. Nothing new in that, but in amongst all of that, and I sort of alluded to it earlier, is this idea that salespeople have to start to learn to be patient. Gone are the end of month, end of quarter scrambles. Quick, get the numbers in, close that deal, bring that deal forward, all that stuff. What now the really savvy vendors are focused on is lifetime customer value, right? The buyer needs to know that when they sign up for Video My Job or HubSpot or Salestribe or whatever, that vendor is going to take them on a long-term journey. So you have to be able to articulate the vision of the journey and then demonstrate, and proof points help, of course, that you can take them on that journey successfully. That you're going to help improve their business strategically, commercially, operationally, the whole thing. Okay. So remove, what I'm getting at with the BS number 2 is remove the impatience.
All right, excellent. So impatience to me is also another factor, especially like in the millennial generation that I'm in, is kind of we want everything now. We've been conditioned that with internet and everything like that, we kind of want everything straight away. But when it comes to impatience, I think there's another part that I'd kind of like to allude to, is that it's not only impatience on the part of the person, but a part of the business as well, in terms of we get a lot of businesses that will, are focusing on the numbers and getting the numbers in now based on shareholders, rather than looking at a long-term vision of the people they're working with. So in order to fix this, in order to have the solution, what would you suggest would be a big solution here for your salespeople that perhaps may be a bit impatient?
You're right, and this point feeds into what we talked about with the first point, how they're measured, managed and rewarded. So the business leaders have to step back and maybe accept that the way we've done things in the past is no longer going to get us where we need to be. And we need to change the parameters around how we measure people and take the pressure off them for short-term results. And that requires a leap of faith. It requires that leap of faith to say, all right, well, if we're now all of a sudden with our sales playbook going to give the most delightful experience we can at every touch point for that buyer, then revenue might take a dip for a little while, the short-term sort of month to end of quarter turnover, but long-term we're going to be so much more sticky, and the lifetime value and the cost of acquisition are all going to be financial metrics that'll be improved. Case in point, so here's an example. I learned recently through my work with Amazon Web Services that the salespeople at AWS are proactively encouraged to go out and meet with customers and find ways to reduce their monthly spend.
Monthly spend on AWS?
Yes.
Okay. So what was the benefit for them? Why would they go about doing that?
Great question. I asked that exact same question. I said, well, that's interesting. I've never heard of anyone doing that in sales before, actually going out and trying to reduce the spend. The gentleman that I was talking to at the time said to me, we know that when we do that, and bear in mind AWS or Amazon in general is a business that is absolutely customer obsessed. 14 leadership principles. Number 1, customer obsession. When we go out and do that, quote unquote, we know that customer will be with us for life. We're proactively trying to help them solve business problems, reduce their spend. We know that creates stickiness.
Yep, cool, excellent. There you go, seems simple enough.
Yeah.
So I honestly, I couldn't agree more. Like, I'm in a position I am now, and I say impatience to me is something that I fall on a lot of the time, being not even in sales, but like asking myself, I want to get this done now. I want to get, you want to get promotions, you want to get different things, and honestly, taking that step back and learning patience can be one of the hardest possible things, but it can be super important, especially if you're trying to really grow something, on a long-term scale. So I totally agree. Impatience is terrible, and
look, it's endemic across the entire sales profession.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, right from day one, 1989, when I started, it was all about numbers. It was all about monthly quotas. It was all about, earn the most commission you can. And so you get into this mindset of quick, go, close, lone wolf out in the territory, quota crusher, So that mindset has to shift to a much more long-term mindset.
Well, look, there are lots of businesses that are doing that now, and you're starting to see that with the change and shape of, the market, especially in Australia now, with a lot more of the, long-term focus on software development or this new business initiative that we have in Australia.
Yep.
That's more along the lines of, okay, we're looking at long-term growth rather than short, quick answers. So to me, impatience is something that I've dealt with, and it's real.
It's interesting. Startups like Video My Job, your business, fantastic. I would call you sort of almost born in the cloud. You've started off the right way with that right mindset, the right culture. It's the legacy businesses that really struggle with that transition to this more patient way of doing things. It
also takes people to step away and go, okay, why was I so rushed? Why was I going to do this? It's often societal pressure to kind of be successful, but that's a whole different conversation entirely.
Correct.
Especially being a millennial, we're all forced to be amazing Instagrammers and whatnot, and I can't take a photo to save myself, but I work for a video company, so who knows. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. That's definitely BS. So let's move on to the final one here. What is your third and final BS for today?
Well, the final BS is, and it's all relevant to the sales world, but we're moving more and more into the future of work, and more to this sort of new way of working that we're all doing now. The rise of the freelance economy, the contingent workforce, and what's happening is there's a lot of people now putting their hand up and hanging out their shingle and saying, I'm a coach. And I'm a sales guru, and I'm
right, okay.
And in a lot of cases they're self-proclaimed sales gurus who are out, and for various reasons, vested interests mostly, they're pushing a very old message, and they're still trying to coach salespeople like it was 1995. Make more calls, do more prospecting. As I said earlier, forget about what a sales leader, forget about what I say, forget about what every coach on the planet says. Just go out and ask your buyers. Ask your buyers, what experience do you want from me as a supplier to you?
Okay.
And then adapt your sales process around that. So my third and final point is, don't listen to sales coaches if they're still preaching that old push method. If they're still talking about prospecting and sifting through the numbers, hoping to find that one little gold nugget, if they're still preaching that message, fire them and go and get someone else.
Okay, right, that's very strong on that one, but in the interest of balance and fairness and whatnot, I will play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Okay.
There will be people who will say that the old method has been working, because of course they would continue doing it if it's going to be successful. So what would you say to those who say, well, actually, my method's working, I'm making money, my business is doing well? What would you say to those kind of people that are going, why should I listen to you? What are you telling me that I should know that I don't already know?
Voice of customer. Real simple answer, and somewhat sort of, again, glib, but there's always going to be exceptions with sales. Sales is never black and white. There's grey areas in every industry, every product category, every, different type of business has these grey areas. Start off with the position that you want to understand what the buyer wants, and don't worry about what old sales leader who's been there for 30 years, who's a superstar, rock star guru. Don't worry about what he says. Go and talk to your buyer. So I would say balance up the old advice that you've been getting and the old way you've done things with what the buyer now wants. Because I'll guarantee you, and you've only got to look at proof points like the staff turnover, annual attrition of salespeople, still massively high, double any other industry sales turnover. Average sales tenure, 16.8 months. 67% of B2B salespeople are failing to meet or exceed quota.
Okay.
So we've got this constant churning of salespeople, which is massive cost, right? And at Salestribe, we're trying to do things in a much different, lower risk way of managing talent. And when you look at the way salespeople are, again, to the point before about measured, managed, and rewarded, if you're going to keep pushing them to do things the old way that are not working, for those little incremental gains, if you can find them, you're going to keep turning them over.
Right. Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
So that's always a question that someone like me who is not necessarily in the sales industry would be curious about, because you've got these people that have been successful for so long, these people that know how they've made a lot of money and stuff like that, and then our generation's always taught to be like, hey, look at these guys, they've been very successful, listen to them. And I think that's the big other part that comes into this whole issue for me, at least, is that you get people who will offer their services as coaches, who will offer their services or charge a certain amount, and then they'll give you contradicting information in their own pitch, which I've seen a lot. Yeah. But what I would also question you on really is that if we're talking about people that are coaching or trying to offer their services, and you tell them, sorry, your services aren't what we're looking to get, for example.
Yep.
What can you then differently teach, say, a younger generation person coming through, saying, don't look at this person because they've got the old school style, look at us, for example.
Yep.
What can you tell a younger person when they say, a coach has approached me, I want to, they're approaching me to help them with the sales side of things, they want me to pay for it. What do you tell those sort of people?
Tell the salesperson
What
who's
do
looking for a coach?
you tell the junior person who's looking for a coach? What do you tell them specifically? Do you tell them that they should be looking at X person in industry, they should be looking at a person that's preaching this philosophy? What are we looking at?
And look, good question. So I would be telling them to use your intuition and your nous, your gut instinct around, we're all buyers, right? We all buy stuff. And when you go out to buy something, you want the experience to be a soft sell, easy. You don't want someone pushing you. So if a coach is coming in and saying, you've got to have 3 to 5 times quota on your pipeline, you've got to make the calls, you've got to do all the prospecting, all that old brute force selling stuff that I talk about, interruptive push, then I would say to the salesperson, get another opinion. And everything we're building at Salestribe is based on 4 years of research, writing 2 books, and speaking extensively to buyers. I went out and interviewed buyers. I said, tell me what it's like for you, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, to engage a vendor salesperson. And I got 12 months worth of feedback. And it was probably an understatement to say it was a light bulb moment for me, because I got a lot of feedback that I never expected. And before you talk to a coach or before you talk to Salestribe or any other business, go and talk to a buyer. Ask a buyer what they think.
Honestly, you're preaching exactly kind of the things that we look at Video My Job as well, as going, if you're a user on the platform, if you're a person viewing the content, what do you think is important to you? What's value to you, rather than saying, oh, well, it's my business, I'm going to tell you what makes good content. For us, it's all about going, well, what do you want to do? What do you think will bring your business value, you personally value? For example, doing this BS series for me is all about understanding different people's struggles in their particular area to understand more. And I think one of the big parts that you kind of covered off there was getting a second opinion, or understanding there's more than one person in an industry. I think that when you ask a lot of the junior salespeople, they'll have someone that they've been mentored by, or they'll have someone who's taught them a certain way, and they won't get out of that that tunnel that they're in. And it often is the same a lot with recruitment as well. You'll get people who will be trained a certain way and move in. And I think the biggest outcome for me, or for anybody that's listening to this sort of thing, is understanding that all this BS comes from having one track mind, or understanding one style and not really kind of being flexible or moving. So I think you're completely right, is that, anyone who's a coach or anyone who comes in with a sales idea or sort of a philosophy, there are going to be different ones. There aren't going to be the same one every time. And, I've done recruitment, sales, kind of mixed around, but you get taught by so many different people, you understand that by the end of it, the only person that's consistent throughout the entire process is the person buying the tool.
It's the buyer.
It's the buyer.
This is why I love your model, right? And I mean that sincerely. I love not just the business and the product.
Model, I get that. It's fine. Yeah,
you are a model. Yeah. No, I love the whole product you're building, and I love the approach that Video My Job has created, as well as and because it goes into exactly what I'm saying. The best salespeople right now are engaging buyers where and how they learn. And increasingly that's on digital and social platforms. Buyers go out and do their research first. So first of all, be present, be visible, and create insights. That old thing, I love that old thing about when we sell, we break rapport. When we educate, we build rapport. So that's why I love what you guys are doing. I think this stuff you're doing with Video My Job is gold. It's perfect.
It's not even, it's more or less for me specifically, it's asking yourself, are we doing something that actually brings value, or not even that, but then you talk about the model and the style. Everyone's got their own kind of opinion of they want to do things. They don't want to, people want to start off doing one way or another. And for me, it's all about that. So that's definitely BS. As anyone who coming here and going, I know exactly what you're doing. This is how it works. I'm a rugby coach, and I can tell you right now, I've been told by 4 different people how to pack a scrum, and I'm a first 5, so I've never been in a scrum in my life, so I've got no idea. So I wish I knew. Okay. Cool.
Just to your point, in 30 years
Yeah.
Of sales, I've done precision selling, solution selling, strategic account selling, target account selling, value-based selling, spin selling, challenger selling. There's been so many variations of the theme, and so many people in my career who've said that's the way to do it. Absolutely, that's the way to do it.
I can tell you right now, I used to read that Challenger Sales book. It was a good way to get to sleep. I'll be honest with you, it was very good. Really appreciated that, made it easy for me. Okay.
I know a better book.
Your book keeps me up at night, I can tell you that right now. Right, so those 3 BS items are all definitely BS. I'm not happy with them. I'm very upset by them. And the best thing that we can do is just kind of offer solutions. So the solutions that are there, if you're interested in knowing more about the solutions, what I can say is that you've got this fantastic book, which is here. So do you want to tell everyone sort of where they can find this book?
Yeah, amazon.com.co.uk.com.au, wherever. Amazon's the best place to find it, but you can also buy it from our website, Salestribe.
I've read it a couple of times. I actually really enjoy it. I'm not saying that because I'm on camera with you right now, or the fact that another member of your team's staring at me, not believing me, but I definitely have read it, which is good. I like the part where he talks about me a lot. So you can find that. Not only that, but on the series here, we want to make sure that we thank our guests for coming along. So I've got a gift for you here, mate. This is really important to me and our business. It's something that we believe everybody should have in their house.
Are they pictures of you?
Yes, they're pictures of me. Could you just read the inscription, please? I've got there. It says, if you can read it. I can't write very well. But
To my biggest...
it says, to my biggest fan, keep striving for greatness.
Oh, right.
And I think that of all people, of all the discussions we've had today, I think you deserve that probably more than anyone else.
Mate, some of those photos might scare my kids. I don't think I need it, to be honest with you. You can have it. You can have it, mate.
Wasn't planning on getting my gift back, but that's fine. Maybe next week's guest will want it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Graham, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. If there's any final thoughts you could leave anybody with after our discussion today, what would be the final thought on sort of everything we've discussed?
Final thought is create value before you try to extract value. Simple as that.
Easy.
Be patient.
Cool. Easy. No worries. Well, thanks to my guest Graham, and look forward to our upcoming series. If you want to know more about Salestribe or about Video My Job, there'll be details above or below, depending on what platform you're watching on, to find out more about us. But in the meantime, thanks for your time, guys, and this has been BS talking about This Is BS. Thanks. Good on you, mate. Like a little cheesy one, like that. All right, cool, done. I'll take my out here. Easy. All right.